Hello, Tifo members. Welcome to this week's members video, where you ask questions and then Alex pretends to answer them properly. Joel Roth. Joel. What does the... It's not the umlaut above the E. What does that signify?
I can't see an umlaut on my screen.
Joel? Joel,
Maybe.
Joel?
Like
Mr. Roth.
Noel.
Master Roth. Feels like now I'm assuming gender also. Human Roth. That sounds... Tim Roth. Tim Roth. With the Nations League reeling...
I'm going to be honest, you're not...
I'm doing a good job right now, am I? The Nations League reeling...
You've not started at the top.
Yeah, I have. This is my top.
Sort by most recent.
This is the internal politics of... that's not the most recent is the secondary way of doing it. I'll do oldest first is the only one I have. I can do oldest first. Or the way I'm doing it is the way that they've been upvoted.
Oh,
so
fine.
the top comment.
Do that then.
Joel Roth. Joel Roth. Tim Roth. With the Nations League reeling, putting pressure... Is it really?
Really?
Okay. Excuse me.
Should
Joel.
we start this again?
No, it's fine. They're just the members. They don't matter. With the Nations League really putting pressure on nations to play their best squad in test games, does the importance of internationals increase? And what impact could this have on club football? By the way, I had a nightmare about you changing your background music to something less calm. This just shows how much I like your calm approach, which is hard to find anywhere else on YouTube. Thank you, Tim Roth. I had a chat with a cab driver about this the other day, and even though I hadn't watched the England-Netherlands game, I still schooled him and then sent him to Tifo. He was trying to explain to me about... I had one of those moments where someone was trying to explain football to me, and I thought, little do you know that I'm important. But he said, maybe this is a good way of getting into the question, he was very upset that England's lineup was what it was. And I said, but it doesn't matter, Mr. Taxi Driver. And he said, it does matter, it's the UEFA Nations League. And I said, they're friendlies. And he said, are they? And that was the end of the conversation.
Right. I mean, they're not.
No, but I mean, they were. They're only not because we've all pretended that they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, they are, and they definitely were. And now they have a different name. So it seems like it's a different thing. But it's not.
No, I think in answer, there's 2 points to make. I think the first thing is that the competition isn't in and of itself a bad idea necessarily, but the diffuse nature of it and the fact that the semi-final and the final are so far after the rest of it, and also coming at the end of an extraordinarily busy season for a lot of those players.
This is why Joel Roth says, will it have an impact on club football?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that does devalue the competition. I think if you had the final much closer to the other elements, it would be more exciting and people would be more interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Will it have an impact in club football? No. And I think the answer to that is simply because...
What about long-term injuries, though? What about if a player at the end of the season gets picked because they're a bigger player?
Yeah.
If this was a friendly, as it normally would be, and it wouldn't normally be at this time of the season either, but if this was a friendly... then there might be less stress for the managers to pick the bigger players. What if they pick up an injury because they're exhausted from the season that's just finished?
Well, the elements that come after the end of the season, obviously they're not going to matter so much. And I think the players now are quite attuned to... If I was someone like, I don't know, like a Virgil van Dijk or someone, if I felt that there was a danger of aggravating an injury or whatever it was, then I wouldn't do it.
But even if it's the prestigious semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League friendly pretend competition,
I mean, you can pick up an injury in any scenario. So it's not. I don't think that's the issue that makes so much of a difference.
And also, maybe tired injuries are more muscle injuries, which aren't longer term, right?
That I wouldn't know. There's a guy on Twitter called Ben Dinnery who's very, very good on injuries. So he's worth a follow. I think, look, the power in football now resides with the clubs rather than with the international associations. So I think if there were significant issues around competitions like this, an injury and so on, then ultimately the clubs would refuse to release players or would put pressure on players not to attend. Is it nice to win a competition? Yes, it is. Is it anywhere near as important as any of the other competitions? No, it isn't.
I think the real question here, before we move on, is how it affects international football. Because the thing I was trying to, my point to my very nice taxi driver the other day was that these would have been the fixtures in which a coach would try
experiment,
experiment with new players, and yeah, I mean, we don't have time to linger on this one, unfortunately, because we've got 17 questions to get through. But
that is a very good point, and I think that is where potentially, I know you do it occasionally. I think that's potentially where the downside of it lies. The
stop trying to make everything important.
The competition has to go one of two ways. It either has to become important, in which case coaches won't try things out, or it retains essentially friendly status, but with some sort of knockout element, in which case managers may wish to experiment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Joel Roth. Adam Turley, an old friend of ours. Adam Turley, what is some recommended reading if I want to get into coaching? ?
Yeah, so coaching is a tricky one. There are books on coaching, and the easiest thing to do is to look on Amazon, which I know is kind of a cheap answer, but certainly there's an Irish coach called Ray Power. I know. He's done some really good books on coaching. There are some quite complex ones, and by coaching, Adam, I'm assuming that you're meaning things on how to construct drills, how to coach 3v2s, that kind of stuff. I think
he's interested in becoming a bus driver, coaching,
very droll, yeah. Well, as opposed to books more about tactics in the sort of Wilson, Michael Cox vein. So I guess that's what Adam means. The easiest thing to do is to go on Amazon and look up soccer coaching.
Look up the courses as well. Contact your local FA. Just get in touch with them. The people that work at these places are very accommodating and normally are delighted to receive an email.
Yeah.
They really do sit in those rooms on their own, don't talk to anyone. If a young person, Adam Turley, I assume you're young, if you email someone and say, hey, what are my options here? What's the coaching courses? They'll probably come back within an hour with this massive essay of an email.
Well, actually, all the details for FA organised coaching courses are all online.
Yeah.
And they're all, I think they're sort of regionally broken up. It is quite a complex process to get into coaching.
Also, I presume it's quite expensive.
That's the major issue.
You know what, though? Adult education. Guess what I'm doing in September?
God knows.
I'm doing an acting class.
Oh, you're not. Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah. Because fans of Tifo, I also write. I'm also writing plays, fiction. And I thought it would be useful to meet some actors, try out some acting.
This is the first I've heard of this, guys.
I only booked it the other day. But I'm nervous, but I'm excited. Adult education. Just do it. If you can afford to do it, and obviously I don't want to see it. Someone doesn't have any money and there's a kind of barrier to entry. But if you can afford it, just go on a course. Just do it. Why not just do it?
I mean, the other thing that I would point out before we move on from this, and before I dwell too much on Joe doing an acting course, is if you can almost certainly get some joy contacting your local non-league clubs.
Yeah.
And just, all the details will be on something like pitcheroo.com, and get in touch with them and say, hey, I'm interested in coaching. Can I come and observe a session?
They're desperate for people to get involved.
I would be really, really surprised if anyone said no to that.
Yeah. Okay, Adam, I hope you have enjoyed our answer to that question and that is useful. If you do pursue this, do keep us up to date with how it goes. Joel Kemp, a second Joel, has the Premier League tactics made the bigger target man striker largely irrelevant? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I'm going to keep this super brief, otherwise I could go off and
I can understand why Joel says that.
Long time. Yes, so
because it's not popular.
It's not popular, and certainly a sort of false nine style of striker is popular. That helps with pressing systems, for example. Bigger strikers tend to be slightly more cumbersome and less able to press, and so teams that have pressing systems don't often use bigger strikers. However, if you look at Mitrovic, for example, whose performance in a relegated Fulham side was excellent.
Is he a big man? Is he a target man?
I would say he's
a kind of like...
He's in that vein. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Salomon Rondon, who is on a really, really strong run of form, also internationally with Venezuela.
Sure.
I think a lot of teams would like to play a certain way and may find larger strikers and target men less appropriate for that.
Mm-hmm.
But for teams who want to go direct, or for teams who want to have a more direct option B, i.e. Llorente at Spurs, I know he's been released now, but even so, I think it's still very, very useful. And if a striker has the right other attributes, then having an aerial presence and being dominant off crosses is a huge advantage.
Okay, Joel, I hope that answers your question. Amir Eldib, another old fan. Some fans seem to blame players for being always injured. Is that just people being unfair, or is there something that players can do to avoid being injured? For example, I heard people saying that Barcelona's Dembele should be more professional and avoid some of these injuries. Thank you. That's hard.
Yeah, that's really hard. I think the short answer is yes, there are always going to be things that players can do to avoid injuries.
Phil Jones.
Or to
comes to
help
mind.
themselves avoid injuries.
Don't charge into everything with your head.
Yes, that does definitely help. So obviously diet, how you conduct yourself off the pitch,
Not saying you feel okay if you don't.
That's crucial, and I think particularly for younger players that's a real temptation.
Keen to impress.
Keen to be present, keen not to lose their place.
Keen not to appear weak.
I think also there are just going to be physiological differences between people. And some people are going to be more prone to certain kinds of muscle injury.
That's right, really, isn't
certain
it?
types of players will...
I'm fizzy and you're logical. So there's that, and that's our dynamic at Tifo.
Are they going to cover this on your acting course?
I hope so.
You big thesp.
I hope so.
Good Lord.
That wasn't worth interrupting you for, was it?
No. So I think, I mean, the short answer is that there certainly will be things, if players are out on the piss every other night, but the lives of players now are so tightly controlled by and large. They are extremely valuable assets to clubs. And also, I think, most players don't want to ruin their opportunities by being out on the lash. So I suspect, by and large, if people are having a go at younger players for being unprofessional because they're injured, that's probably quite unfair.
Okay.
It's more a result of things out of their control.
Thank you, Amir. Andy Volosky, when you're watching a game and trying to take some tactical analysis out of it, what exactly are you trying to watch for? How do you set up your watching? Not sure that makes sense. Andy goes on to say, I tend to have trouble recognizing certain structures or game plans, ideas in real time. Do you watch for anything in particular to inform that? Is it just a matter of knowing enough about a specific team to make an educated guess? That's interesting.
Right. That's a really, really good question. So the first thing to say is that before I start looking at a particular team or a particular game, I will have in mind what it is I'm looking for. So, for example, I may be concentrating on attacking structure. I may be concentrating on defensive positioning. If I'm doing an all-round kind of tactical analysis, I try very hard to segment it. So, for example, it may mean watching the game twice, but the first time, all I'm looking for is attacking movement or transition. The second time, all I'm looking for is defensive positioning and pressing.
It should be said too, it's much easier to do that in the stadium, isn't it? Because you aren't directed by the view of the camera.
That definitely helps. And I think getting a significant overview, I mean, we do all our football watching basically off video. So we use Y-Scout as the main platform that we use for that, which is excellent and allows me to hone into particular players or select clips on the basis of, certain things, certain types of pass, for example, or crosses or what have you. I think it definitely comes with practice. I think some people are better at seeing visual patterns than other people. That's just a thing. But you can practice it and enhance it. One thing I would do, for example, is if you're looking to learn how to analyze games better, it is worth concentrating on one team only and really getting to grips with what that team's doing and particular individuals within that team and the roles that they play. Because the more you watch that one thing, I think crucially, the more you'll see points of difference. So you'll see where a team suddenly is playing 5 meters higher than they usually are or pressing the wings more aggressively than they usually would. And that really just comes with practice and watching lots and lots of football.
Okay, next up is Braden Pun. Is the director of football or equivalent roles overrated by clubs, given that clubs likely already have scouting networks in place? Braden, I'm delighted you asked that question because we have a video upcoming on the role of a footballing director. So that will answer Braden's question.
That will answer the question. I would just say that the answer is no, because what a sporting director should be doing is setting all the overall strategy of the club, only one part of which is scouting and recruitment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Braden. Rogue Apple. If the rise of the cult leader stroke messianic manager, hello, i.e. Klopp and Pep, is to be the new norm, will this provide a balance to agents and by extension their fees? To me, this almost seems like a natural market reaction to a problem. Say Pogba wanting to play under Zidane. With Madrid struggling for cash for once, I can't see Pogba allowing Mino Raiola's usual chunk of change being allowed to get in the way of such a move. Really enjoyed the idea behind the last week's episode. Very enjoyable to listen and watch. Thank you, Rogue Apple. And what a lovely question. Hello.
It's a really good question. It's a
chunk of change.
Really smart question.
Chunk of change.
I think that managers are becoming more of a lure probably than they were even 10 years ago. Yeah. Obviously, there were always outliers.
There was always Fergie.
So there was always Fergie, there was always Wenger. Prior to that, even going back to Liverpool guys, Shankly and so on.
I was going to say Shankly.
Back before that, Busby. But I think there is more of a proliferation now of star managers rather than just star players. I think players recognise that certain managers will be able to develop them significantly in a way that other managers won't.
Do you know why I think this is?
Why?
I think it is because the generation of people like myself, you're slightly older than me, but the generation of people like myself who grow up with the internet in their bedroom, watched football and analysis of football in a slightly different way, and now that we're coming of age, we're looking for new things to be interested by. Therefore, the coach, the pragmatist, the conductor of the orchestra has suddenly become the focus. We're not looking at the first violinist anymore. We're looking at the conductor.
I think that's definitely part of it, and I think the increasing complexity of tactics and the increasing analysis of that complexity plays a part.
It makes it available, yeah.
I also think it's in some way reflective of the media's constant requirement to have something happening and something to talk about. So managers are now encouraged to be part of that conversation and the regularity of press conferences and so on.
That's what I mean by the internet.
Yeah,
because I think that's the driving force behind all of that.
Yeah, but it's also Sky Sports News or whatever it is. Will it have an impact? I think it's part of a more broad shift whereby players, particularly younger players, and Pogba's a good example of this, they are more articulate, they're more aware of themselves as brands, they're more conscious of their commercial value and also what's going to happen after football. And therefore, certain moves, working with certain managers possibly, I think that will see players being more demanding of their agents and more happy to override what their agents suggest.
Okay. Wonderful question. Thank you very much, Rogue Apple. Ricky Footit. Is it possible to rate current managers alongside the past legendary managers like Wenger and Sir Alex, when a big part of what makes them such icons is their long-term success? Given now that a manager gets 3 to 4 seasons max, is it possible to compare short-term against long-term? And will trophies always be the main focus of how a manager is judged, or should influence on players and managers like Bielsa and managers like Eddie Howe, who saved a football club? Did you catch those?
Yes. Will you want me to answer the question?
I want you to answer the first one first. I'm going to answer one of them for you.
Okay.
One of them is no. It's not possible to...
It's not possible to rate them, no. And I think that's partly because of the development of the role of the manager.
Yes.
So
Different times.
Man. Now, for example, transfer business is quite often not handled by the manager. There'll be a discussion of which players might be appropriate. The manager will make recommendations, but they're not going... Brian Clough was turning up at players' houses to make them offers to join. That stuff just doesn't happen anymore. So,
young man.
Yes, the overall control that managers have is diminished.
Yeah.
The game has moved on. Obviously, you can still assess those managers In some regards, you can make comparisons, but I don't think, this is why I think if a list of, the top 100 managers in football history comes out, it's always a nonsense.
Yeah.
Because how are you supposed to really gauge that?
We're going to have to move on because this is turning into a whole extra podcast and I don't have time to edit an hour. But Ricky Footit, I'm sorry we didn't answer your second question. Thank you for the first. Good one. Billy Dunthorne would love to hear Alex's opinion on my club, Norwich City. Hello. Not only tactically, but in terms of how we've recruited and bloodied young talent into the first team. How far can Ben Godfrey and Max Aarons go in the game? Personally, think they have all the attributes to go for. I have two things on this. Steve Webber is his name. Stuart Webber was being linked with United because of a stellar job that he's done. Max Aarons was a transfer who was associated with that in the rumour mill. We do have a video on Norwich City in which Alex was very glowing. We've talked about them on a few podcasts, so I'm going to restrict you to one short sentence because we have a lot out there already. Needless to say, Alex loves Norwich now, and here's why. But briefly.
Second smartest club in the Premier League after Liverpool, and the three players in that back line who are young and English can go to the very top of the game.
Fraser Dixon. I'm sorry, I've added an in where there wasn't one. Fraser Dixon, what do you guys make about the Scottish leagues and if it's competitive or not? I'm a fan of Partick Thistle. I used to always read that as Patrick Thistle when I was younger, but that was wrong. Partick Thistle in the Championship and last season was one of the most entertaining I've ever seen. So competitive, but wondering what your views on it are. And irritatingly for you, Fraser Dixon, I'm going to make you answer this short and brief again.
It's going to be short and brief anyway. I don't watch it. I don't know anything about it, unfortunately.
Really sorry, pal.
But Fraser, off the back of your recommendation, I will delve into it more.
Thomas Whitford. Do you think it's possible for a National League team to climb the football ladder, or is there too much money in the game now?
If they have enough money behind them, then yes.
That's a good quick answer. Thank you, Thomas. And Salford City is maybe a good example of that. Flipendo. Are they called Salford City? Salford United? Salford? Oh, yeah. Salford. But is it City or...
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. Flipendo. Why do so many excellent, exciting coaches come from Germany, and what can England do better to produce young, innovative coaches? The first part of that question, I know you can answer quickly.
I can answer really quickly. Flipendo. Find a book that has been published within the last 2 weeks. It's called Mensch. Beyond the Cones by Jonathan Harding. I will type that into the answer anyway.
Yes.
It's brilliant. It's just been published by Oakley Books, and it answers your question about German coaching better than I ever could.
Brilliant. And we will come back to the one about what England could do better. Read the book, come back to us, and then we'll answer that one. Austin Cooper. What is a country with an underappreciated football culture and a good way to learn more about it? That stumped me. There we go. Have you got a phone?
Yeah.
We could film off your phone?
Yeah.
Alex's camera's died, but we're going to carry on. And I'm going to... You're just going to hold it there?
No. that would look super naff.
You should get a... Hold on.
I mean, I can.
No. Is it recording?
Yeah. No, it's not recording.
No, it's not recording. Look, this is Alex's phone. Let's put this in a funny place. I'm sorry, listeners. This is going to look rubbish. But it will work.
I just hope you don't get random notifications of things that you can hold against me.
Right. You're recording, so give us a clap so I can sync it up. This is how it all works behind the scenes, listeners. That one stumped me.
Yeah, I mean, an underappreciated football culture, it's really hard to know what that actually means. I suspect all countries have got interesting aspects to them. The best way... too. Yeah, the best way is to just go there. And I know it's difficult and wary of sounding privileged or whatever, but I've had the opportunity to, for example, go to Germany, watch Union Berlin in their stadium just before they got promoted. And that was immediately a really interesting excursion.
It was overappreciated. Austin Cooper, thank you so much. We're going to have to think about that. We'll have a think about that one.
We will. Because
that's a tough one.
Probably somewhere like Iceland is the answer, but who knows?
Magneto 90X. Who do you believe is a sensible manager acquisition for Chelsea if Maurizio Sarri is to leave? I believe he left this morning, so good timing on that one. And someone's been listening to the podcast. Sensible. Sensible.
Yeah.
Sensible.
The short answer is not Frank Lampard.
Okay. What's the second short answer?
Allegri is probably the best available option.
Okay. Yeah. That's,
Sensible.
it is sensible. Tim Hoare, what Tifo videos are you most proud of?
Probably the Montague stuff, isn't it? I would say.
Yeah, but are you proud of that? I think you should pick something that you've written that you are proud
I'm
of.
proud of.
Corporately, you're proud.
Actually, do you know what? In all seriousness, and this is not a savvy plug for upcoming work, but the stuff we've got coming out on Sensible Transfers
Sounds like a savvy plug.
It does.
I won't have it.
But
No, stop.
Okay.
Go to the past. I can think of Conte was the first big one.
the World Cup stuff,
The World Cup stuff was good.
producing that on a really, really quick turnaround while it was actually happening, that was pretty cool. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes a few of the tactical things where I've suggested the ways that unlikely results might happen and they have happened.
I remember that Mo Salah video, but I
the
also
Mo Salah
remember
one, yeah.
that it was me that said he was going to score a lot of goals. You laugh, but I remember that conversation.
Yeah, but
I said, we looked at the stats and I said, he's going to score a lot of goals, isn't he?
Yeah.
And you said, yeah.
What do you mean?
And then you wrote it
looked
up.
at the stats.
And then we looked at the stats together.
What's that? What?
We had a whole conversation about it.
Okay.
And then I said, he's going to score a lot of goals.
I
isn't
don't
he?
remember that, but
And
yeah, it
you
seems
said-
very reasonable.
You said, yeah. And then
Let me work out how.
Now you're the genius.
Yeah.
I can't think of any, Tim, because they all meld into my mind. But I would say proud of them all. Robert Younger, which managerial appointment has you the most excited for next season?
Fonseca at Roma so far.
Fonseca. Who else is new? Who's new in the Premier League?
Well, until Chelsea appoint someone, there haven't been any changes yet.
Chris Hughton
Have
left
they?
Brighton.
Yeah, but that's kind of technically last season, isn't it? Potter has come in there.
That's exciting.
It could work really well.
That's exciting.
It'll
I'm
be very
excited about that
interesting
one.
to know what will happen there. Yeah, that's quite good. I think
That's it, isn't it?
it'll be really interesting to see who Chelsea bring in. I think if they bring in Lampard, it's a mistake. I think whoever Manchester United bring in December to save a failing season.
Whoa.
That'll be exciting as well.
Okay. Well,
But
yeah.
no,
like
I think
Graham Potter.
Fonseca's done fantastically at Shakhtar Donetsk and
Mm-hmm.
has now a chance to really show what he can do with a side that are going places. So
I know-
I'm excited about that.
I would say also I know that he's not a new appointment, but Farke at Norwich in the Premier League. I'm excited to see how well Norwich do. I did the thing, Football London, which is a website, does this clever little thing where you can predict the outcomes of like the first 8 games. I think it's the most recent one they've done. So you go on their website and it says, it just gives you a fixture per time and you click which team you think is going to win or if it's going to be a draw, and it tells you at the end what your, after 8 rounds, what your Premier League looks like.
Norwich are top.
Mine was like ridiculous. Mine had, no, Norwich weren't top. Trying to remember who, Spurs were top.
Right.
And then it was Liverpool.
Yeah.
Then it was Man United and then Chelsea and then City, which is crazy because City have quite an easy opening 8 games. And then Norwich. And in the bottom 2 was Everton.
Yeah. Well, that's possible.
Maybe it is. It was wildly off.
United have got a really easy run into the end of the season.
I think they've got a difficult open though, haven't they?
They're quite hodgepodge, I think.
Because they've got Arsenal and Chelsea within the first
Arsenal's not a difficult opener,
6
is it, really?
games. Well,
Throwing them
tell
out there
that
today.
to an Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
Alex Ayer, could you talk about Watford's tactics?
No.
No.
But what we will do is a video on them at some point during the season.
Yes.
Because
We did one last season.
yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to talk about tactics. There will be acquisitions. Watford have got a guy on loan at Fortuna Dusseldorf as well.
Right.
A young Belgian striker who came up in my scouting stuff, who looks awesome. So it'd be interesting to see if he comes back.
A young Belgian.
Yeah, he's called Lucabilio or something. Lucabilio. I can't remember his exact name.
Lucabilio.
But, it's really hard to work out what teams are going to look like before the transfer windows really got into swing. So once it has, then we'll come back to that, and Watford will definitely be a team we'll look at.
Okay, that's all the questions. Members, thank you very much. Very much appreciate that. Yes.
I was doing it to that camera.
Oh, yeah, that camera's not on, mate. What is that plug for? Pedlar?
No, that was just a salute. That was just a hello.
Oh, I see. We will be back in a month to do this. Between now and then, Alex will be back with more tactical breakdowns of teams.
Please make suggestions for those.
In the comments of this video, please suggest tactical suggestions or teams you would like to see.
But not
Alex,
Watford, Alex, because I'm not going to do them like that. You've had my answer. Come up with something else.
How dare you? But do something niche because he likes that, or just whatever you want. In fact, don't do something niche because they're always hideously niche. And
the
that
Netherlands
will be
is not hideously niche.
What even is that? I don't even recognise that place. That will be out next week, whatever that is, and then ongoing. We've got exciting things coming. I'm trying to think if there's anything we can tell members about before anyone else finds out about it.
Well, we're going to do podcasts, sensible transfer podcasts forthcoming. We're also going to maybe do some videos where we look at a couple of leagues and pull out some prospects from there.
Simon Harrison is coming in to do the podcast with us on the 24th. Goes out on the 25th, the Tuesday, the 25th of June, which I think is going to be focused around Spain, La Liga. We're going to look at some teams and maybe suggest players that they could buy or that sort of thing. And maybe as part of that, we can go through and find a few young players as well that fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, I suppose. Yeah. But thank you for watching. And this is 32 minutes of basically a whole podcast, isn't it? So, yeah. I mean, you're welcome. You don't pay enough money for this, but you just don't. But I'm going to edit it now anyway. So I hope you're happy. See you later.